Hello, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
Like, watch, enjoy, subscribe. Jack, anything else?
We're all
Comment.
back together. Comment.
Wi-Fi was good today.
Share with a friend.
I was late.
It's not Wi-Fi. I wired in because I know what I'm doing. Can y'all hear that?
Hear what?
Okay, good. There's an incredibly loud drilling sound here.
We can't hear it.
We can't hear it. That's good, though.
Above this office, they're apparently putting in a dentist office, and they're doing the construction work, and they're just drilling. And I can't imagine you not being able to hear it right now. It's amazing.
We can't hear anything.
I can't hear it at all.
Wow. All right. Well,
Is it going to drive you crazy?
It's too bad.
It doesn't usually last long. They do
Well-
it about 2 minutes, and then they stop for a while, and they'll get back at it.
You set yourself
All
up
right.
there, huh?
Y'all about ready?
I think we're ready. Nice office, by the way.
Thank you. This is my own personal studio.
It's gorgeous. Didn't know you were such a huge Artie Lang fan.
Huge R.D. Lang fan. Who's R.D. Lang?
RT.
I said Artie, didn't I?
Oh,
You
who's
just
R.T.
heard it.
Lang?
He's a comedian. He's just a big time comedian. It was more.
Boy, I think it's charitable to call Artie Lang a comedian, don't you?
I mean, that's his whole thing. He was a comedian.
What kind of mood are you in today, Brandon? I'm trying to figure this one out.
All I know is I asked you guys to be ready to do a tight hour at 2:30 Central Time, and it's 2:38, and y'all are finally ready.
We were sitting here. Your
No,
mic
it wasn't.
didn't work.
No, I had to go get the high noon.
Excuse
No, I had
me.
to go get the high noon.
Excuse me, your mic didn't work. So whoever's on your side, you can blame, not us.
Oh, we're throwing Tom Lay under the bus now.
I never would throw anybody under the bus, but we were sitting here ready, and you couldn't hear us. We couldn't hear you.
Tom, what you said about Jack is exactly right.
Tom would never say anything bad about me.
I know he's not even in the room anymore.
I know.
Let's get started then.
All right. What do we got? We're gonna talk about teams that we can't see coming. We can't figure out this year. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, and you know what? Just start the podcast because I have something to say.
What are you gonna say?
Well, it's about the lists for Monday.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, yes. You fired up about my little list, my win total, where I was like, oh, A&M
no.
7 games.
Well, no, you just start the show. Just start the show.
Okay, but when I start the show, I have to leave for a little bit. Okay. We'll start the show. Hello and welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast. I'll now pretend to not be in the room.
Jack, I know I had some internet issues on Monday's episode. Thank you guys for helping me out. I was in the middle of nowhere, Texas, because I
Yes,
have
you
some
were.
friends who have a lot of land outside of Houston. Clearly their Wi-Fi did not work, but you know what they did have? And I was trying to tell this story on Monday before I lost connection. When we got there, my boyfriend has never been to Texas, ever, other than for Christmas when I was 9 months pregnant, so we didn't even leave the house. This is all new to him. He's never seen it. They went and showed us the drink fridge, because that's what they have in Texas. You have just a drink fridge. Open
Yep.
it up. Entire side of it, high noons.
That's just
High noon tequila, high noon
Beautiful.
vodka, everything. They knew we were coming. And getting a drink fridge in general is great. Getting a high noon drink fridge when you're on the ranch in Texas, pretty awesome.
no. That just sounds like heaven on earth. And high noon, it's the summer of high noon. They're probably their third summer running in terms of just dominating the summer, and they're gonna have a bunch after this summer. But this summer, right now, it's a high noon summer. Pool pack, tequila, you name it, they have it. Peach. I'm just thinking about
Tall
tasting.
boys.
Tall boys. I'm tasting a peach right now in my mouth.
I'm
okay?
tasting a lemon.
Yep. And
Underrated.
I cannot wait to enjoy some high noon this weekend while watching some UFC and then, out with some friends later in the day.
Yeah, go get your high noon pool pack. The new high noon commercials for Barstool should be running soon. You'll get to
Oh,
see
yes.
get to see us out in Montauk for the day with Dave and Rico and the gang. So go to Drizly or your local liquor store, highnoonsunsets.com. You can find high noons everywhere. And not too far away are the tailgate packs. College football is coming, right, Brandon? College football is almost back, baby.
That's what I've heard. I've been watching the news and whatnots and seeing all the coaches say something, and we absolutely tear it apart because that's what substitutes for college football on July 19th.
Well, I will tell you that I'm Katie's favorite person right now
Why?
because I got her the SEC media guide
Did you?
finally. Yeah,
I got one for her too.
Did you really?
Nah, I forgot.
I slid into some DMs and got the PDF for her.
Boy, I bet those guys were disappointed when you gave them the question.
It's like, oh wow, a message from
hey,
Kayce
girl.
Smith.
Hey girl, what's up?
One of my coworkers needs the SEC Media Day guide.
Oh, actually, I said it was for me. I didn't even. I was like, oh, I need the media guides for. But I will. This is the way that I do this, and I don't know, Jack. You're probably better at saying if this is incorrect or not. If I slide into somebody's DMs on Twitter, it's more professional. Instagram seems less professional to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people slide into both in terms of professionally and non-professionally. I've done both professionally and non-professionally.
You've slid into people's DMs on Twitter to say what up?
Yeah, 100%.
Instagram is way more of an I want to fuck app than Twitter is.
I also have my Twitter DMs closed unless I follow you. So maybe that's the reason I see it that way. But if I got like a, hey, what up, girl, DM on Twitter, it would really throw me off. Instagram, that's like what it was built for.
Yeah, so 100%. I would say, yeah, Twitter. I mean, I've definitely gone on a few dates because of Twitter, but Instagram's much higher success rate. Yeah, 100%.
Well,
Have you got any TikTok dates yet?
Oh,
yeah, of course.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we don't have to talk about that, but yeah. It's very oh, look at me. But yeah, I mean,
Jack does very well on TikTok.
50, you know? my demographics on TikTok are 50-50. It's men. I'm 50-50, male and women, or male and female.
How many followers do you have now?
Hold on, I was just about to look. I haven't checked in a while. Last I checked, it was right at 500,000. So I got to check on him again. Got to check up on the boy.
Can I tell you? You want me to tell you or not?
I need to see it myself.
You know what's great, Jack? You now of all of us have your account has the highest follower count
by far. He's at 576,000.
Oh yeah,
506.1.
Yeah, no, it's great on
TikTok.
TikTok.
It's like 460.
Yeah, no, TikTok's great. I love TikTok, but more women. Yeah, I've never gotten a date off of unnecessary roughness.
I bet you could.
Wait, there is one girl that does listen. Shout out to Daisy.
There are a lot more girls than one that listen.
A lot of girls. I've had titties thrown at me.
That is true.
Yeah, but I've never gone on a date because of it.
Oh, well, maybe now you will.
You're
the only single person on the podcast.
We know we have Paige Browning.
And her best friend her podcast best friend that she traveled like 2,000 miles to meet.
Right. Then there was who was the other Texas girl that would. Dang it.
Oh,
I met a couple.
We haven't read the fans stuff in a while. I did do a tweet just now.
Stanford. There's the woman who went to Stanford. She was on the Stanford women's soccer team.
Allie Gleason.
That's who I was thinking of. Allie Gleason.
She listened to CCK too.
Daisy. She's one of the biggest fans of the show out there. Shout out Daisy.
Oh, Brandon, we met a couple people.
You would love Daisy.
We met a couple girls at LSU last year. Remember, they were standing on the side of the stage at the college football show, and they were like chanting for me, and you were like making fun of them because they were chanting for me, and then they ended up like following us to the car to take pictures. Yeah. Okay, so as I mentioned when I was talking about High Noon, I was unable to participate on Monday's episode. Brandon, by the way, thank you for not losing your shit, because I could see you standing up every time the internet would come back for me, and I know that's a bad sign.
No, he wasn't even.
When he stands up and walks out of the camera view, I know he's mad.
She's right. When I stand up and walk out of the camera view, it is to compose myself. That's at all times. So she's right. But I wasn't mad at her. I was mad at the internet that she was trying to connect on.
Yeah, I was out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, but I'm back. But I know we talked about doing the top 5 most intriguing, interesting, whatever word we landed on. What I was going to do was listen to the episode on the flight back to try to get an idea of what you guys
100%.
talked about. And then I decided not to, because I wanted to know how many I overlapped when I read my list. Because I have my list here. The one that I was sitting in front of, Brandon, you said I looked like I was about to sign a lease at a bank.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's right here. And I wanted to see how many I overlapped with, because I have a feeling all the answers were pretty similar.
No, we thought we were going to have a trifecta on one conference, and we didn't.
Yeah. There was a lot of variance.
Okay, so I have no idea, and then I did bring my win total as well. But you already gave away. What's the win total? You said you think A&M's going to hit under?
Well, that was my win total I gave up. It was under 7.5 for A&M.
So you were just talking shit, and I wasn't even on the podcast.
I didn't know you weren't going to be on the podcast when I came up with that. When I came up with it.
Is that the only time you guys talked about A&M on the podcast?
Yeah.
No, because we also talked about them in the intriguing team section.
I wasn't even on, and you people just keep doing it.
I was a big supporter of Connor Wegman on the
Oh,
podcast.
really?
But Brandon is not. Oh my God, his feet look so big now.
Oh my God.
I'll walk you through as you do your list. I'll walk you through our list after you give yours. So why don't we start in the ACC?
The ACC. Okay. I went with Florida State, and I know, Brandon, you've been saying, like, oh, we know Florida State's going to be really good. It's Florida State and Clemson. I said this last week when we talked about quarterbacks. Like, Jordan Travis has absolutely solidified himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the country from last year. We know Mike Norvell looks like he's the guy. They had 10 wins last year. However, I almost think, for me, they're more intriguing because we're putting them so high on a pedestal. Like, yes, Clemson's had a few, quote, down years for what Clemson is used to, but I don't think we can put Florida State on the level of Clemson yet in the ACC, and I still think it's Clemson and everybody else. So for that reason, I think Florida State is the most intriguing because it's, can they repeat a 10-win season? They hadn't had one since like 2016. Can Jordan Travis take that next step to be a Heisman Trophy candidate? And that, to me, is the most interesting because I'm not ready to say, well, it's Clemson, Florida State, and everybody else. And I think a couple years ago, if you would have asked me if Mike Norvell was going to turn around the Florida State program, I probably would have said no, and he seemingly is going in that direction. So I took Florida State.
So you did overlap with one of us on the ACC. Now you guess which one you overlap with.
Well, I don't think it's you because you think that they're like solidly. You know, is it Katie? Because she had Jordan Travis on her quarterback list.
Yes, it is Katie. You overlap with Katie. I had North Carolina. Okay. Jack had Miami. And Katie had Florida State.
How did Katie handle the North Carolina situation?
She always does.
I explained it very well. I mean, they got maybe the best quarterback in the country outside of Caleb Williams, but what else are they going to have? Because if they got anything else, they've got a chance to compete in the ACC. But if they don't, they're going to be garbage. So I think it's intriguing.
I don't know if there's anybody harder on North Carolina than Katie is.
That's how she handled it. We'll see. That's what she said.
Yeah, she was miserable. She was miserable when I said it.
That's checks out. Okay, what's the next conference you want me to do?
Give me the Big Ten.
I think this one was probably going to be the unanimous one. Wisconsin.
So
that is what I thought too, Kayce. That is what I thought too. Only one of us picked Wisconsin.
Well, I'm assuming for all the same reasons. You have Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. You've got Tanner Mordecai. You've got Braylon Allen. The thing with Wisconsin, too, is that when Nebraska hired Matt Rule, it was like, oh, my God, this is going to be the best hire in the Big Ten. Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin, you think immediately he's going to change his program. But as far as right now with the divisions, the Big Ten West is way more wide open than the Big Ten East. We know the Big Ten East, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, yada, yada, yada. If Wisconsin can get back on top of that division and actually be a really good team, that game in Indianapolis is way more interesting because right now it's Ohio State, Michigan, whoever wins that game, and then a boring Big Ten championship game. If this new offense, Tanner Mordecai, if they can get it all together under Luke Fickell, that by far to me is the most intriguing storyline in the Big Ten.
So I had Wisconsin as well, so you overlap with me on that one.
Okay.
For every reason you just said. Jack, I believe, had Penn State. And the fact that it's time. If they're going to do it, let's see it. And I'm not going to lie to you. I don't remember Katie's at all. I think it was Iowa.
Just said Iowa.
Cade McNamara. Yeah.
Oh, Cade McNamara. Okay.
Well, what she said was, and it was a good point, was when's the last time we saw an offensive coordinator have a point quota that he's got to hit? Yep. Remember that Brian Ferentz has to average 25 points a game to keep his job. And that is very intriguing. She's right.
I think hers was, she won that conference in my opinion.
Yeah, because if you would have just said Iowa without the reasoning, I would have said absolutely not. I'm not intrigued by Iowa at all. But all those reasons make sense. But I think Wisconsin, when Luke Fickell, are primed to be amazing. So
give me the Big 12.
The Big 12, I have TCU, and as I did this list, I realized that I just see the Big 12 as the old Big 12. So I didn't even count all the new teams.
I said the exact same thing, Kayce, because
you really did.
Jack has a team that's outside. That's one of the new ones.
Yep.
And when he said it, I was like, I never even considered the 4 new teams.
I
Never.
saw the Big 12, like at the Big 12 Media Days, and I think we actually talked about this 2 weeks ago whenever it was actually happening, all the new logos. It still throws me off. Like, it still doesn't feel real. So when I was doing this list, I was like, I'm not even going to consider those teams. I'm just going to go to the teams that I know, the devil that I know. I took TCU, and I mean, clearly this is, I feel like, an obvious reason because they're also in, I know, the list that we're going to do today. It's like, where do you put TCU this year? You lose the quarterback, and you lose a guy who wasn't even supposed to start. He wasn't even supposed to be a guy. Max Duggan, obviously an incredible quarterback, an incredible personality, but wasn't even supposed to start. Is Chandler Morris going to be good? You're without Garrett Riley. You're without your top receivers, some of your rushers. And then you add on the fact that Sonny Dykes is clearly a very, very good coach. When we talked about last year, first-year head coaches, he's top of the list there. So where do you put TCU? Played in the national championship, got their shit kicked in by Georgia.
Yeah.
However, they're intriguing because even if they can hit that, 9-10 win total, that's still a really good team. It's just I don't even know what to think about them, where to put them. But the biggest intriguing factor to me is the fact that Max Duggan wasn't even supposed to start last year, and he was a Heisman Trophy finalist. So seeing what Sonny Dykes can do with Chandler Morris is really interesting to me. Did that overlap with anybody?
Don't think you have overlap there. I think you're on your own on that one. I had Oklahoma.
I thought about Oklahoma, but I felt like it was such a cop-out for me because I always talk about Oklahoma. That's all I ever do.
Yeah, I agree. And then Jack had UCF.
Mm-hmm.
As good as they're going to be, and they got a good quarterback, Gus Malzahn, and now they're entering a new conference. And I can't remember what Katie had, but I think it might have been Texas. Noah?
He doesn't remember that one.
Wasn't it a weird team?
Let's go through. Kansas State, it wasn't Kansas, it wasn't Oklahoma State, it wasn't Iowa State, it wasn't Texas Tech, it wasn't Baylor. You sure it wasn't Texas?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I think it was just Texas.
I mean, Texas would be a good
answer. I don't
answer.
know why I thought she said Iowa State, but she didn't.
I don't remember what she said, so to be honest.
Noah's looking it up.
Anyways, let's go to the SEC.
Okay, the SEC. I took Ole Miss.
I almost took them too.
I don't know if Brandon's going to walk off set or not, but
no, because they're going to come up in a little bit when we talk about teams that are hardest to read this year.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, when you look at it right now, their quarterback room is one of the most, on paper, stacked quarterback rooms in the country as far as having, a quarterback battle, but 3 different guys. And the fact that they went out and they got, Spencer Sanders, who for a long time we talked about on this podcast at Oklahoma State being, part of a great offense, and it just never really came to fruition. And you've got Walker Howard, who, is in the mix there as well. It's one of the deepest quarterback rooms in the country, and for that reason, I think when you look at Lane Kiffin's offense and what he likes to do and all the buzz of a top 20 team, like what's the SEC West going to look like? And I've said this, we've all said it. The SEC East is Georgia, Tennessee, who the good teams are up top. The SEC West is so wide open. I assume Alabama every year. I assume that LSU is going to take that next step. But Ole Miss could be right there as well, especially if they find the guy that they're supposed to at quarterback.
So Jack had
Florida.
I might be lying here. You had Florida.
Yes.
He had Tennessee, I think.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea who I had. I might have had Texas A&M.
It was Texas A&M.
I did this whole spiel of in the SEC, most of the teams are intriguing. You know that Georgia's going to be good. You know that Vandy's going to be bad, and Alabama's going to be really good. All 11 other teams I could argue for this intriguing list. I don't know what to expect out of A&M, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, on and on and on. That whole conference is like that this year. There are a lot more questions than answers in the SEC this year. So you had that team. You had Ole Miss to yourself.
Have you
seen? I did go A&M on that. Now the Pac-12.
Pac-12. Oh, go ahead,
Brandon. Have you seen? There's like a little bit of hype coming out of SEC media days for Arkansas.
Yeah, they love KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, there's been this movement that KJ Jefferson's the best quarterback in the SEC, and that's just silly to me. Like he's a good quarterback. I don't think there's ever a world he'll be the best in the SEC. Guy lost to Liberty at home last year after scoring 19 points. Like on paper going in, he's one of the most experienced, but like Will Rogers was there too. It's just the same. Jaden Daniels was really good for most of last year. I don't understand the hype for Arkansas, but again, I said it the other day. I don't understand the hype for A&M, for Ole Miss, for Arkansas, and everybody decides Mississippi State's going to be last place because even though Mississippi State returns more than every one of those teams, a better quarterback than those teams, and won more games than those teams. So it's just a weird situation in the SEC to me right now.
Quickly, do you think that this is the biggest question mark in the SEC West we've seen in a long time because of Alabama? I know that's a cliche answer because it's been a dynasty, but to me, even last year was like the SEC West is just wide open. I don't know who the worst team is.
The thing is,
I don't know who the best team is.
It was wide open last year. We just didn't recognize that going in because we thought Alabama was far and away better than everybody. But like LSU won it, and LSU wasn't all that good. They were okay, but they lost to Florida State. They lost to A&M. They were not the typical West champion. The West was down last year, and it was wide open. This year, going in, LSU looks pretty damn good. Alabama looks pretty damn good. But I don't think either look head and shoulders better than everybody the way they did 3-4 years ago. So, yeah, I think the West could – 7 teams, you could jumble them up in any order. I'd probably be fine. You need to put Alabama or LSU at the top. But after that, any order looks decent to me. Like I could see anything happening in the West.
And there's no solid answer of the last place team. None.
I don't think so.
You can't.
Again, the team that's getting voted last place is Mississippi State. They bring back 21 seniors. They won 9 games last year, and they have a quarterback who's thrown for 10,000 yards and 86 touchdowns. Like, sounds pretty good on paper.
Right.
All right, the Pac-12.
I have Oregon. And I love the Bo Nix storyline as much as I'd like to make fun of Bo Nix when he was at Auburn. You know, he had 29 touchdowns last year. I believe 7 or 8 interceptions. But last year, one of the biggest things that I did hand up was bury them so quickly when they absolutely got curb stomped by Georgia, understandably. But Dan Lanning in his second year, Bo Nix coming back, just everything that they have going for them makes them incredibly interesting. And I think, barring a few mistakes that they made last year, that, this team, the Pac-12 as a whole to me is by far the most interesting conference for so many different reasons. But Oregon is right there for sure. And they make me like Bo Nix. I can't believe I'm saying it. Oregon has made me like Bo Nix, Jack. And we know I did not like that man when he was at Auburn.
Jack had UCLA.
Yeah.
I had a team. I had Oregon State. Thank you very much. And Katie had Oregon, I think.
Katie, who was your Pac-12 team on Monday?
Washington.
Washington, yes.
Hello, Katie.
Hello.
So we didn't overlap on Pac-12 either.
No, and then on the non and the group of 5 or extra, we all kind of just across the board agreed Notre Dame.
I kind of took the independents out of it. I took Notre Dame out of it. I said UTSA just because I like Frank Harris a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
Notre Dame's clearly the answer, but like I was just kind of looking at the UTSA schedule because one of my friends that went there and like they have a brutal non-conference schedule, but if they can win in their conference, if they can run the table in their conference, it actually could be an interesting storyline. But obviously the answer is Notre Dame.
Oregon's a very, very interesting team when you think about them because they were so close last year.
Yeah.
And then you look at their schedule. I'm just looking at it now. That game in week 2 is sneaky one of the best non-conference games of the season. They go to Texas Tech, and that's going to be the most hype that Texas Tech is going to be for a non-conference game in a while. It'll probably be a night game. It's going to be hot, and then Hawaii, Colorado, Stanford, and then it could be a 5-0 versus 5-0 when they go down to Washington. And then after that, Oregon's very interesting. They bring in Trayshawn Holden too, a wide receiver. Bucky Irving's a great running back, and Bo Nix. And the defense should be getting better under Dan Lambert.
They got Birch from South Carolina over there on defense. Like Dan Lanning's defensive guy, yeah.
Yeah, Dan Lambert is the owner of an MMA gym. Sorry.
Yeah. Dan Lambert was on AEW for a while. He was pretty good. He just didn't know how to be on TV, but he said a bunch of fun stuff. All right, so now today we're doing teams that are the hardest to read going into the season, okay? And this is not a list situation. This is going to be open-ended where I guess we can all just go around and enter a team into the conversation, and we go from there. We agree?
Yes.
Yep. Is there any ad I need to read right now, Noah? Or
yes, there is.
There is. Of course there is.
There is in the group chat, he sent the ads for today.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do that one in a little bit. All right, so I will enter a team. I will go first because I am the heart and soul of the show. I am the straw that stirs the drink. I am everything. I'm going to say Ole Miss, and
Wow.
kind of for a lot of the reasons that she said, they're getting top 15 buzz, and I can see it at times, and then at times I can't see it. If you look at their skill position players, they got Quinshon Judkins, who might be the best running back in the country. A lot of people say Blake Corum, who's coming off an injury. A lot of people say other guys. I mean, Judkins is as good as it gets at the running back position. Their offensive line is good. Their wide receiver position, they lost everybody, but they went out and got Zachary Franklin from UTSA. They went out and got, I forget his name,
Trey
but
Harris.
La Tech's best receiver. They went out and got receivers. And defensively, I don't think they look great on paper, but they went out and got transfers there too. So they're going to be, bringing in guys and seeing if they mesh. And Lane Kiffin's been great at the transfer portal. So you got to assume they got some good players. However, that quarterback position looks weird. It's just really, really weird, and nobody's talked about it. But Jackson Dart got replaced. They went out in the transfer portal and got two other guys. Jackson Dart transfers to Ole Miss, has a decent year, is good against bad teams, is bad against good teams. That's what he did last year. They started out 7-1, ended up 8-4. But Jackson Dart is still young, and you would think he would take a step forward. But they went out and got Spencer Sanders. They went out and got Walker Howard. Walker Howard just seems like he's content to ride the bench and not play. But Spencer Sanders ain't trying to ride the bench. So they go out and get him, and now the Jackson Dart's still the starter, and Spencer Sanders is just going to waste his last year of eligibility to be a bench guy. The whole thing is weird, and I don't understand it. Like, if they went out and got Walker Howard, makes a lot of sense. You bench him for a year, he takes over when Jackson Dart moves on. The Spencer Sanders element is just, I don't know how it's going to work. Like, are you going to just have three starters? You're going to have two starters? Nobody's mentioning this as a negative, and it could be. Could be an extreme positive, though. I don't know how to read them.
That's why I'm repetitive from what I said in my list earlier, but that's why this is so intriguing to me, because when you look at those guys, and you, like you said, Walker Howard's just content riding the bench, it seems, but it's the deepest quarterback room, one of the deepest quarterback rooms in the country. And when Lane Kiffin goes out and gets Spencer Sanders, you immediately think, well, this is going to be his guy. There's no question. Here we are in the middle of July. Jackson Dart is still projected as the starter, or it seems to be. But Lane Kiffin is very clearly a guy that is up on the current offenses. He is not a guy that's stuck in the 80s, stuck in the 90s. He knows what he needs to do. That's his strongest suit, is the offensive mind, play calling. What are we doing with these quarterbacks? So I don't know where to put them, but they're getting as much buzz in the top 15 as they were last year. And again, the SEC West is wide open. But how do you not know who your quarterback's going to be? Or if they do, how has it not started to leak when you go out and get a guy like Spencer Sanders, who had such a great career at or at Oklahoma State, or was supposed to and had the buzz that he did? It just happened he was at Oklahoma State.
Lane's a great quarterback developer, a great quarterback coach. So I assume whoever he puts on the field is going to be good.
Right.
Their other problem that they got is this: last year they had one of the easiest schedules in the country for the first 2 months of the season, and they ripped out 7-1 start. This year they don't have the luxury of that. This year they got to play Alabama, they got to play Georgia. They play Alabama every year, but they got to play Georgia. They got a tricky game at Tulane, which, ask Kansas State and USC about Tulane. Tulane last year is probably better than Tulane this year, but it's still, that's a tricky game. Schedule's tougher. Ole Miss could be a top 10 team this year. They also could not be very good. Like, there's a big window there. I can't read them. I want to read them as a bad team. I want to say they're going to be bad. I don't think I can say that, though.
You were very good at picking out fake top 10 teams last year.
Yeah, well, the SEC was full of them last year. Arkansas, Kentucky, Ole Miss. All right, who else? Kayce, you throw a team out there. Hard to read teams for 2023.
I think Clemson is there, and I can't believe that I'm saying this, but Clemson to me is hard to read, because even though they haven't had a bad year yet under Dabo since they've been winning national titles, they haven't had a year where you're just like, wow, they've totally fallen off the cliff. But the fact that they weren't in the playoff conversation for very long last year, and even when they were at the very end, it still seemed fake. People outside of Clemson, like, they have no business being there. And now you look and you say, okay, DJ is gone. He was very talented. But can Cade Klubnik come in and resurrect this team back to prominence that Clemson is used to? Or are they a top 15 team? Are they, somewhere between 10 and 15, 15 and 20, which is not bad, which a lot of programs would die to be. But Clemson's so used to being in that top 4 spot, in that top 2 spot. Where do you place them? Dabo's a national championship winning coach. Cade is young. He did not look good against Tennessee in the bowl game. However, everybody says he has a ton of hype. They maybe got rid of the issue with DJ. I'm not really sure where to put Clemson.
Yeah, I don't know about this one, Kayce. And the reason I'll say is because even the worst version of Clemson we could see, I think, is still like 10-2.
I agree.
Or 9.
I don't think they should be dropped out. But I guess so when you talk about Florida State, in your opinion, Florida State is almost up there for this year on the same level as Clemson because of Jordan Travis and all the things we've talked about in the past. I think Clemson is still there as the top team in the ACC, which I said earlier. I don't put them in the top 4. I don't know if I put them 9, 10. I don't know where I would put them. I know that they're still a top team. I feel like every year it's okay, well, Clemson's close to the top 4. Clemson's going to be in the conversation for the playoff. And I don't think I put them there this year.
Jack, do you have one?
Yeah, Kentucky.
I like this one.
I think Kentucky's a team that brings in. I mean, obviously they lose not a first-round draft pick, but a second-round draft pick at quarterback. But a lot of people, even on this show, have said that they brought in an upgrade at quarterback, which
I believe they upgraded
with Devin Leary. And then outside of that, man, they return a lot. Like their entire offensive line, which wasn't great last year, did take a step forward, or is returning outside of I think the entire offensive line's returning.
Well, let me just throw in right here, since we're just discussing these teams. They might have had the worst offensive line in the country last year.
Yeah,
it was wretched.
They were tied for 126 for sacks allowed.
And
yeah, they were bad. But go ahead.
And obviously, Devin Leary is possibly one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Can he come in, take a step forward for Kentucky, and then take them to a spot where it's you look at their schedule, right? They don't have Georgia late in the year, but they could go into the Georgia game, which is away, undefeated. And then after that, they do have to play Alabama. They always play Tennessee. And then obviously the Louisville game is very interesting, but it's where do you put them? They could be a team that could end up 7-5, or they could be a team that ends up really, really good at 10-2. Obviously losses to Alabama and Georgia, but let's say, would it be shocking if they beat Tennessee at home? No. Would it be shocking if they beat South Carolina? No. Would it be shocking if they beat Florida? No. These are all teams that.
I expect them to beat Florida. I expect them to. Yeah, they lost to South Carolina at home last year because Levis was hurt. But I could see them picking off Tennessee at home. I could definitely see that.
One of their more tougher games is you guys on the road in November.
Well, they're not going to win that.
So but they're an intriguing team. I don't know if do you put them in the top 25?
Their win.
No, I think they're a typical SEC team this year, and the variance is. Could I see them winning 6? Yeah. Could I see them winning 9 or 10? Yeah, I think I probably could. So. I think they're a team that is hard to read, because if Devin Leary 2 years ago was incredible, 35 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Last year he got hurt, but he wasn't great before he got hurt, and even though it was early. So are they getting the Devin Leary 2 years ago? If they do, look out. But if they get a average Devin Leary and their offensive line hasn't improved, they could also be bad. I like that. I like that one a lot. Katie.
I'm interested, and really can't figure out Nebraska. I feel like every time
motherfucker.
Oh shit.
You're gonna speak better about it than I am. So can you go first and I'll follow up?
No, you go.
I feel like every time we go back to the grass is always greener. In Nebraska, to me, Nebraska's a Tennessee. College football is better. The Texas. You want them to be back. The stands full, not just boosters buying it out. Kind of confused on Jeff Sims. I like Matt Rule. It's just, I hope it works this year. I'm interested, but it's also, there's so much work to do. What are we going to see in year one? People are shocked with Colorado, with the team total being so low. It's it is 1 year. What's their standard for year one?
Yeah. You said it. I think Jeff Sims is a huge question mark. Listen, the transfer portal has given us so many quarterbacks that reclaim their career and go on to bigger and better things. It also has given us guys who transfer somewhere and would say, all right, well, now he's got his chance, or now he's in a better situation, and he just doesn't do anything. Think of JT Daniels at West Virginia. Think of guys like that just go somewhere and you think, all right, here he goes, his better spot. Nothing. And Jeff Sims showed a lot of promises early at Georgia Tech. Last year didn't show much. Like, is Jeff Sims the answer to make Nebraska a competitive football team? I don't know the answer to that question. I lean no, but it could be yes. Well, because again, every time you weigh that question, you have to look at the fact that Michael Penix exists and happened. But what will Matt Rule be? What will be different about the Matt Rule era Nebraska? This is a team. Will he just hit the ground running in year one, or will it take him to year two before he gets to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 wins? Nebraska is perfect for this conversation because they're almost impossible to read. A lot of transfers too.
Brandon, the closer we get to the season, have you warmed up more on Matt Rule? Because I know when they made the hire, it was kind of like I don't know, it's a good hire, but not a great hire. And obviously Wisconsin with Luke Fickell was the slam dunk, but have you warmed up more to it?
I'm warmed up to the fact that he's not Scott Frost, and I've warmed up to the fact that he is a good coach and has, in his tenure, the problem with Matt Rule is that he's never stuck around to see it through, right? He can get there and quickly turn you around and get you to 9 or 10 wins and everything looks great. But he has never seen it through. And so I don't know if he's going to be a good coach for 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. I assume he probably is. We just never seen it. So that's my trepidation with Matt Rule. It isn't the fact that he's not a good coach. He is, but he's also never stuck around. So I can't just go forward in my mind and say what it's going to look like in 5 years and 8 years for Nebraska.
I really don't see. I see them having a really tough year. They didn't really even hit the transfer portal that hard.
They have 41 players coming in, like freshman and transfer, which is a lot of turnover. It's just
like looking at their starters. I mean, obviously Jeff Sims. They brought in a wide receiver. I think the center is a transfer, and then on defense, it's mostly returners. It's just their roster strength isn't that high. It's going to be tough. I mean, that being said, you look at their schedule. There's winnable games. You know, like they should beat Northern Illinois, Louisiana Tech. And then Illinois is a tough game, but that could be a win. They should beat Northwestern. They should beat Purdue. And then, I mean, then you have a Maryland game at home, which is tough. Yeah. I mean, the question is, can they get to a bowl game? They haven't been to a bowl game in 5 years, 6 years? Since Scott Frost.
That's incredible.
So, you know, like, can they get to a bowl game? And a lot of things have to break their way. Yeah, they have to beat Colorado the first game of the or second game of the season. They have to, and that's a losable game.
Also, to go to Sonny Dykes' first year, how much was that an outlier versus like the obviously not national championship standard, but that bar has been set for first year coaches. Is he the rule or the exception?
So I think he's 100% the exception.
Yeah.
It's just what happened last year with Sonny Dykes is probably 1 in a billion. He's the exception, but that doesn't mean the rule can't be taking a 2-game leap forward in your first year. All right, I got a team, and they're a team that's hard to read for me because last year they had a first-year coach, and they went from mediocre to right there in the playoff conversation. But how does the follow-up look? USC is going to be good, right? They're going to be good. They're going to be really good. But do I read into the fact that they went all the way to 11 wins last season and they're going to take a natural step forward and be right in the playoff mix all year? Or do I look at the problems that plagued them in the games they did lose and say, I'm not sure they fixed them well enough? Because I think the Pac-12 is better this year than it was last year. I think Washington, Oregon State, Utah are all terrific teams, fantastic teams, and they're in the mix with USC. But if USC hasn't fixed that defense, if they haven't made it tougher, if they haven't made it tackle better, if they haven't fixed those problems, and on the surface, I'm not sure that they have. I mean, Alex Grinch's ass is still over there. So if they haven't fixed that, giant step forward that they took last year could just be stuck in cement this year, because if they haven't fixed the and it wasn't just problems on defense where you give up some yards. It was we can't tackle. We're scared to tackle. If you can't get that out of your program, you're not going to be very good. And that's why if they took the big step forward, they're a national title contender. If they didn't, they're going to have some embarrassing games.
Well, and it would be easy to say, well, of course they're going to fix tackling. Look how bad tackling was last year. And I mean, it wasn't just like you have to know football to know tackling was bad. It was a glaring issue. However, we know Lincoln Riley didn't naturally fix those things at OU either. There were obviously, changes that were made that made them better in different years. But I agree. I still think that because their offense is so high powered and because they have Caleb Williams back, it's easy to kind of place them up at the top of that conference. But if their defense doesn't get better at just the absolute basics of playing defense, which is tackling, it's going to be tough. Because like I said earlier, I think the Pac-12 is the most interesting conference by far.
It is funny on that. While we're sitting here, the preseason media poll has come out for Pac-12. It has USC by a mile for number one.
What are the?
It's for at least for first place votes, USC 25, Washington 4, Utah 6, Oregon 1.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. They didn't win it last year, right? So we're just naturally assuming. And I know they went out and got Bear Alexander, and they got some other transfers on
South
defense.
Carolina
And I know offensively they're going to be good. They got transfers there, and they're loaded, and they got the best player in the country. So
they did bring in 6 defensive transfers that they're planning on being contributors. So, but they really have to be, and.
But if Alex Grinch is still employing that, because we have a long track record now of him putting underwhelming defenses on the field.
And every year being like, is this Alex Grinch's year? Is this Alex Grinch's year?
Yeah. And like the step forward they got to take is significant. And to do that, you not only need good players, which they went out and got, you need good players coached well and in the right system and the right frame of mind. I'm not sure they got it.
I mean, yes, it needs to be to win the national title, but they were, Caleb Williams' injury away from getting into the playoff last year. I understand they lost to Utah twice.
Georgia would have scored 900
That's what I'm
points
saying. But I'm saying that
them,
it doesn't need to be significant for them to get into the playoff,
I think TCU could have beat them last year because of how bad their defense was.
Yes, to win a national title, it absolutely has to be significant.
I also
but to
don't
get
think
into the playoff,
I'm not going to give them that Caleb Williams injury of stopping them because that game against Utah that night, they couldn't tackle anybody. What Utah score? 55? I mean, it was horrible. They couldn't tackle anybody.
Yeah, no, it was one of the worst games of tackling I've ever seen in my entire life. And again, I know they need to get significantly better to actually compete for a national title, but even with the piss poor defense and the piss poor tackling they had last year, they were still right there until championship weekend.
And they have 6 games to start the season that should give them almost a preseason. Their toughest game is October, or that's even relatively hard, is Notre Dame, October 14th. Before that, they go San Jose State, Nevada, Stanford, Arizona State, Colorado, Arizona. They should win all of those. They'll be double-digit favorites over all of those teams. They should be able to really go into that Notre Dame game really being a well-oiled machine on defense. If they're not, they will have issues like that we were just talking about.
All right, I've got a team that we've talked about a lot. And actually, this was one of my win totals on the Barstool Sportsbook that I guess you guys maybe talked about on Monday. I'm not sure if you ever got to it, but to bring a total. South Carolina, I don't know where to put them. I know that on the Barstool Sportsbook right now, their win total is 6.5.
Yeah.
And when you look at their schedule, so just to run through really quick, it's North Carolina, Furman, Georgia, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Florida, Mizzou, A&M, Jacksonville State, Vandy, Kentucky, and Clemson. I've got 6 wins there, 2 losses, and that's just kind of me looking at it right off the top. And then 4 toss-ups. To me, I'm taking that over because I do believe in Spencer Rattler. I do believe in Shane Beamer. I saw that Shane Beamer, I think it was today, say that he's like the Ted Lasso of the SEC or of college football, which I think is eye-rolling cheesy, but that's just the way that he is. That's the way that it works. I have no clue where to put them because if I look at Tennessee, or if I look at South Carolina versus Tennessee last year, South Carolina versus Clemson, I'm putting them way higher up because that's the team with Spencer Rattler I thought they could be. If I'm looking at the rest of the games prior to that, I wouldn't rank them. I have no idea what to do with them, but in my heart and my college football blood right now, I'm taking the over of 6.5 total wins because I believe in this team, and I'm a little scared of them, to be honest.
I think that over under. I think you'll know by third quarter of game one if they're going to go over or under that total. Because
Against North Carolina?
They can't lose to North Carolina and go over. I don't think. And if they lose to North Carolina, I think under is a terrific bet. So
see, I had North Carolina as one of the toss-ups. The wins that I had for them.
They are a toss-up. That's why I'm saying.
Oh, gotcha.
They're a toss-up.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying if third quarter they're down 31-14, you know immediately that this isn't going to be South Carolina.
Giving their wins.
I'm giving their wins to Furman, to Florida, to Missouri, Jacksonville State.
Well,
What?
Let me slow you down there.
Okay. All right. So Furman, yes.
Florida beat the ever-living dog shit out of this team last year.
But that's why I don't know where to put them. That's why which Spencer Rattler team is it? I don't know where to put them. Is it the team that beat Tennessee the way that they did? And I understand that, that game was, just absolutely mind-blowing for everybody. But yeah, they beat the dog shit out of them last year because it wasn't the same quarterback than we saw at the end of the year.
This schedule is just littered with toss-ups, in my opinion.
Really?
I mean, I don't think.
I guess it depends on which quarterback you're taking.
Like North Carolina, they could definitely lose.
That's a question mark for me.
Mississippi State definitely lose. Tennessee loss. Florida and Mizzou.
I have Georgia and Tennessee as my for sure losses.
Florida and Mizzou, if they get out of that with one win, I think they'll be happy. Texas A&M, I think will be a loss.
Are you that high in Florida or Mizzou?
Both. I think they're both very similar. If Florida and Mizzou had Spencer Rattler, everybody would be jerking them off as well. It's like the meat riding of South Carolina is just like shocking to me. I know I'll get a lot of shit for this, but it's just, I don't really see it.
I'm right there with you, buddy.
I'm not.
I don't really see it. It's just like you look. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying in general.
No, and that's why the bigger picture of this question is, where do you put them? Because there is a lot of hype around them, but I think it's fair.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
How many teams in America do you believe anybody looks at 1/6 of their schedule from last season and projects based on that 1/6? And it's not just you. It's everybody saying, boy, look at that team against Tennessee and Clemson. Oh, that's great. They look fantastic. They played 10 other games.
No, I completely agree with you, and I'm falling into the trap, and it's a name that we've brought up for like 4 fucking seasons on this podcast. But it's the Spencer Rattler thing, and that's a name that we've all brought up a million times because I don't think it was the team as a whole. Yes, obviously to a degree it is, but I think you can look at it and say Spencer Rattler was the problem in a lot of those games. Spencer Rattler couldn't hold on the ball. Spencer Rattler was overthrowing the ball. Spencer Rattler couldn't do anything right, and then when he figured it out, that team was infinitely better. So that's where I'm falling into that trap.
Jack, do you have a team?
Yeah, and I think it's really surprising how we're almost anointing this team as like a top 10, top 5 team heading into the season, national title contender. I mean, what the fuck is Notre Dame going to look like?
No idea.
I think
people are high on them too.
I mean, even looking at their returning production, they just don't really even return that much. I know it has a lot to do with quarterback play, and they lost their running back as well. But I mean, Audric Estime, however you say his name, actually he's pretty good. But outside of that, it's just I'm looking at their roster, and that like you can always predict that they have a good offensive line, but their offensive line, I mean, Joe Alt will probably be a top 5, top 10 pick at left tackle for them, and they always produce great there. But their offensive line coach is becoming the offensive coordinator. What's that going to look like? Sam Hartman made this decision based off the fact of Tommy Rees being his offensive coordinator. What's that going to look like? Last year, we saw this team lose to Marshall. I know Marshall's not anything to laugh at, but Marshall came into South Bend and beat them. Cal almost beat them. They lost to Stanford, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Stanford.
what? Mm-hmm. Like, and you look at their schedule, and it's just, I mean, it's NC State week 3 will be interesting. Then they have Ohio State. Is Duke a definite win? I don't know. Louisville.
Jack, I think it's the most fascinating schedule in the entire country.
Yes, and I mean, their defense does return top 25-ish in defensive returning production, but I mean, they should be good, but I think there's a scenario where, again, we look up at them and they're like, oh, they were a good 8-4 team.
Well, let's go through it real quick. They're going to start 2-0 against Navy and Tennessee State.
Yes.
Then they go at NC State, and early in the season, like I feel like they'll win it, but Central Michigan. So you got 4. Then you got the home game against Ohio State. So there's 2 national title hopefuls in South Bend on September 23rd. They follow that up the next week. They go to Duke, who won 9 games last season,
with an easy schedule.
Then they go at Louisville.
Tough.
Louisville brought in every transfer in the country. Now Louisville should probably be on this list because of how many transfers they brought in. They got USC, they got Pitt, they got Clemson. After the Central Michigan game, Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, USC, Pitt, Clemson, Wake Forest, Stanford. There's not a day off. There's just not a day in that 8 weeks.
This run from September 23rd to October 14th, no weeks off, of Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, USC is brutal. That may be. I'm sure there's a run in the SEC that's a little bit more difficult, but that may be the toughest run in. At least they have both Ohio State and USC at home, so it helps a little bit. But
still,
that's a brutal run. You can't. You have.
Remember, this team embarrassed Clemson last year. Embarrassed them, beat the shit out of them, and they got to go to Clemson on the first Saturday in November this year. Dabo, the cult is going to be waiting.
Notre Dame is a pretty big time cult too.
The
Catholics are the Catholics are a cult.
Yeah, well, don't get Jack started on that. But anyway,
the way he just threw his hand up and just shook his head is.
Notre Dame's ruined college football for a long time with the whole ACC. Never mind. They never got into the ACC.
They piggybacked off the COVID
or the AA.
No, they're
or the
just ACC adjacent. They get all the ACC benefits without having to actually be in the shitty conference.
Yeah. Anyways, if there's another team out there, I know we've gone through a lot
of
them.
Sorry, I think I'm.
Well, hold on. Everybody got to do 2 except for Katie.
Oh, Katie.
Sticking with a ACC a bit, but Miami, I don't know what to do. They have 7 new coaches, both sides of the ball. Still Tyler Van Dyke. I think. Also, I know everyone's making a fuss. Wasn't the NC State player who was 8th year? Jack did a TikTok about it.
Yeah, wide receiver.
Yeah. They someone on Miami 8th year. I feel like it's the quickest 180 program. Just get the right guys. It has the atmosphere and whatnot. I could see him having 3 wins. I could see him having 11. I just don't know what the team's going to look like this year.
That Texas A&M game is going to be so interesting week 2.
Well, both those teams, that's going to be so revealing for.
Well,
there are so many. There are not a lot of gigantic Ohio State Notre Dame games this year, or Alabama USC. There's not a lot of those. But Jack, you already mentioned Oregon, Texas Tech, Miami, Texas A&M. There's these little games in there that are so big and don't look it.
I love that Oregon-Texas Tech game.
The Oregon-Texas Tech game is much bigger to me, and maybe this is just because of what we saw last year, but A&M Miami last year was supposed to be this huge telltale sign. It wasn't it a top 10 matchup? It was, right? A&M.
Yeah, you guys lost to App State the week after, or was that the week before?
No, it was the week before, but A&M I think dropped to 9 or 10. But everybody was like, well, that game's going to be huge. And then when A&M lost to App State and then beat Miami, it was like, they're back. And I was like, no, A&M and Miami both just stink.
Yeah, but here's why it's a big game, Kayce.
Oh, it's definitely a big game. It's kind of like the way Katie feels about North
Here's why it's a huge game. The loser of that game this year in week 2 is probably fucked again. If A&M comes with all this hype in the offseason and they lose to Miami in week 2, it's going to all come crashing down, and they'll be like, oh, my God, we're doing this again. If Miami loses to A&M, oh my God, we're doing this again. Mm-hmm. Whoever loses that game is going to have a long road to hoe, and whoever wins that game is coming out feeling pretty goddamn good. So I think that's a huge game in week 2.
Can you repeat that saying?
What? A long road to hoe?
Never heard that.
I've never heard that.
You've never heard long road to hoe?
I heard long road ahead.
A hoe.
Hoe gives.
The hoe. Long road to hoe.
I've never heard that. Have you?
I think I have. I'm not 100% sure.
I feel like we're missing something.
You just got mad when I said hoe and you thought I was talking to you.
Oh, please. Do you have another one?
No hoe. I did ask the Roughnecks this question, so we're going to answer theirs. We're going
Okay.
to look at theirs.
Just quickly, I threw TCU in there. I know we talked about TCU earlier. TCU, I mean, I talked all about it in my list earlier. I have no clue where to put them either.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue where to put them after they went 12-0 last year. But they're
That's
just
true.
confused.
They're just confusing as a whole.
You know what's not confusing?
The Barstool
In a couple
Sportsbook?
months, you're going to wake up on Saturday and you're going to have a full day of gambling ahead of you. And to do it, you're going to use the Barstool Sportsbook app. Because it's the number one sports betting app in the country. We're going to have some exclusives. I've got an exciting announcement about my role in the Barstool Sportsbook coming soon. So we're going to have our exclusive bets, and we're going to have all kind of things coming up this year for Unnecessary Roughness. You have Dan's bets. You have in baseball right now, Chris Klimmer's killing it. Stephen Shea, of course, maybe the best basketball prognosticator in the world. For NBA, we have the guys you want to bet with. Oh yeah, we got Jack's UFC bets, and all that. We got everything there on the Barstool Sportsbook. You need to go download it, set up an account right now. It is the best. Yes, Kayce, were you going to say something?
No, I was just curious what your bet's going to be.
Oh, don't worry about that. Anyway, download and sign up for the Barstool Sportsbook today. Terms apply. You must be 21 or over. Gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I didn't say anything, by the way. You're hearing things.
No, you look. I can tell. You don't have to say it with your face to say it. I saw in your emoji. I saw that you were. I saw you.
I'm also. Is anyone like? If you're watching on YouTube, Brandon's feet are up.
They're huge, massive. We talked about
it's the angle.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Katie. You're late.
I know. I was talking to Meta. I was trying to get an account back. They're also very clean.
Whose account?
So I said, well, they're brand new. I said, Roughnecks, answer this question. Which team is the hardest to read entering this season? Very simple. Best ones get read on the show. Blake Stackpool says Wisconsin. They have the personnel of a traditional ground and pound team with the offensive philosophy of an air raid with Tanner Mordecai, who wants to throw it a ton. An air raid offense with Braylon Allen will be interesting, especially considering it's the Big Ten West and Luke Fickell. Very well stated by Blake Stackpool. It's a good tweet. He really packed a lot in there. TJ Riddell, Texas Tech. They have a head coach that can recruit and perform, underrated offense, and a very stingy defense. A lot of people are overlooking Tech, but they need to keep their eyes peeled on the Red Raiders. I think I agree with that one too. Although it seems like he was saying this is an underrated team and not a hard-to-read team. So I'm not sure he really understood the assignment.
He tried to understand the assignment. He tried his best. I've got one for you.
Okay, let me read this one. EB says Arkansas. Unbelievable quarterback running back combo. That's a little bit much. KJ Jefferson's,
yeah,
but he's not unbelievable.
Where did that come from? The KJ Jefferson.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
I
don't know. Jack already said it on the show. I have no idea where it came from. The Arkansas hype or the KJ Jefferson hype. Everybody's acting like he's the best quarterback in the SEC. I don't see it at all.
Because we didn't finish last year with that being the narrative. So like
he put up some pretty good numbers.
No, I mean
last year.
I was just gonna bring up all of his numbers.
He put up some pretty decent stats.
Okay, so it's
he's very coming into this year. He's never thrown for over 3,000 yards. He's
a pretty good quarterback.
And then you hear about his rushing, which is like, I'm not obviously sacks are in here, but he's never ran for over 1,000 yards.
He's never run for over like 600, has he?
Yeah,
where's
664 in 2021, 640 last year. 9 touchdowns last year, 24 throwing, so 33. I mean, those aren't like, oh my God, they're pretty good. Don't get me wrong.
He is 5th. So PFF, I pulled out draft years. He is 5th. It's an Ohio guy, Caleb Williams, Jordan Travis.
Nathan Rourke?
Yes. Drake May, KJ is 5. I guess it's just under the radar.
Arkansas, unbelievable quarterback running back combo with a head coach that has finally had enough time to settle in. That's one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard. How much time do you need to settle in? Sonny Dykes played for a national title last year. Like, it doesn't take a lot of time to settle in.
Exception.
The defense returns some solid starters, and their best D player from 2022 is being replaced by 4-star Chris Paul Jr. Yeah, if a guy's going in his 3rd year and you're propping him up by saying he was a 4-star, means he hasn't been very good. Michelle says, I was going to let you read one. You go, Kayce.
Our friend Brad. I know you miss Brad. He said, Penn State, always hyped and always sucks. Talent is there, but the coach stinks. Hi, Brandon, with 2 kissy faces, XOXO.
Yeah, Brad's a fucking idiot. And we're not going to read his again. Michelle says Iowa is interesting. Gathered a lot of weapons in the transfer portal. But how well will Brian Ferentz be able to deploy them? Big Jam says, I think the University of Alabama has the hardest time reading. That's not very fun.
Ha ha ha.
It's not very-
I mean, is the dynasty done or is it back?
BL Lippert, USC. The focus continues to be the stars they have on offense, and while they have made some nice additions defensively, lots of people expect them to be in the playoff for some reason. That could be true, but the Pac-12 is as good as it has been in a while. Not sure USC wins 10. So exactly what we talked about earlier.
Tanner Bolware says Texas A&M, they could legitimately be an 11-1 team or a 4-8 team. I kind of agree with that. They could the gap on them is so big.
Chris Torres, Oklahoma State, when they are picked to go deep, it usually ends up being a bad season. When no one picks them or they are lower in the preseason rankings, they go deep into the year without losing. It's always a roll of the dice with them.
You know, if we were doing quietest teams, I think Oklahoma State might be. There's no buzz about Oklahoma State whatsoever this year. None.
I was talking to Gino, and I was like, I'm not hearing anything about your team. Everyone, people are excited about Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Texas.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a thing for Oklahoma State saying we have this, we have that.
Well, they have nothing. I think they may be one of the worst teams in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I mean,
but isn't it weird for them to be so quiet?
Yeah, well,
It
I mean,
is.
also, if, geez, you look at their roster, returning production ranks 107th. They lost so many people to the transfer portal. If I'm looking at their roster right now, 5 of their 11 starters are from the transfer portal. They're a transfer portal team. I'm talking about on offense. Then on defense, I think they have a really, really high chance of looking bad this year.
And the future, their class was ranked 54th, I think, this year. That's their worst ranking in 20 years, which is tough.
But Brandon, you are right. It is weird to have zero, I mean, for good reason, but zero buzz about them.
A lot of TCU here, a lot of Texas A&M here. A couple of Alabamas could go 9-3 or 12-0, depending on 1 or 2 players. Oregon State, decent QB play, could be the difference between 6-6 and a Pac-12 championship. I just don't see a world where Oregon State's got a 6-6 roster. I think they're fantastic. Yeah, so there's that.
We're
anyway,
seeing a ton of Miami too.
Yeah, and that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
they could take a leap forward, or we could be talking about replacing Mario Cristobal at the end of the year. I don't think we're going to, but those are options on the table.
What quarterback for streaky, just the Oregon State, South Carolina, or insert another one, is it going to have more of an effect? We've seen the highs and lows of Spencer Rattler, highs and lows of DJ. Who do you think has more of an impact on the team, or if there's another one? Both of those teams.
I think Oregon State's a lot better team around DJ than South Carolina has around Spencer Rattler. I think if South Carolina's going to be good this year, Spencer Rattler's going to need to do some carrying. I think he's got some good skill position players there, but their defense isn't great. And
Antoine Wells is a great wide receiver, probably one of the best in the country. But outside of that, I mean, Trey Knox is a good tight end, but they lost what's his name? Who is that dynamic tight end running back?
But yeah, they lost him. Their top running back's gone.
All right, let's end it here.
Okay.
We'll be back Monday to do more unnecessary roughness. Otherwise, I'm going home to beat rush hour traffic.
Good luck with that.
That's unnecessary roughness.